Shall we make a start? Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for this session. I'm Veena Rodrigues, and I'm um, the academic director of the postgraduate medical education programs, and also course director of the PG diploma year. We have separate course directors for each of the year, so everybody gets their full focus. Also with us today is Laura Aston, who is the head of our academic center administration. Um, Then you have Ryan, who is one of our student reps on the course, so he can give you the student perspective. And then Matt Thomas, who has engineered this whole thing together. Just to make you aware, this session is being recorded. So, who is our course aimed at? In general, our course is aimed at any health professional who enjoys teaching and also probably has a teaching role within their job. So, any educator who wants to learn more about how to teach or how to teach well is welcome to join the course. Generally, we have doctors at all postgraduate levels, ranging from foundation to very senior doctors who have always been interested in education but perhaps never had time to join. We have paramedics, we have dentists, although we now have a new dental education course also available. So if you are a dentist and joining us today, we can give you the link to join the specific course. We have vets, we also have public health practitioners and specialists, nurses, and in fact, clinical therapists also, if they have an educational role in their job description. Um, the kind of teaching we deliver, it's mostly through in-person teaching. So that has been the mainstay of our three courses. Students actually enjoy being on campus and learning in groups and from each other on those days. So we have some single days, but some two-day blocks which allow students to get more interactive and more discussion, but also getting to know each other well. We do focus on the content and the process quite a lot, so you know why we do what we do, and you can also then look at the role modeling perhaps and use some of the techniques yourself when you are doing your own teaching. We try to be as interactive as possible and inclusive, trying to, we do make arrangements or try to direct our teaching appropriate to all health professions, although we have typically had more doctors in the past, but we are conscious that if you're joining us from a different profession, we will try and make it inclusive. If you have any issues in terms of joining us, we will try and do whatever we can to support your learning. We do focus a lot on small group learning because we feel that it gives students a chance to interact with their peers. And because people come from different backgrounds and varying levels of expertise, it's also handy to learn from each other. And the discussion is one of the things that the students actually like best. Peer learning from each other, we also encourage students to give feedback to each other, particularly in the diploma year. We focus on peer learning through feedback. In the third year, they do learn from each other by observing each other's teaching, giving each other feedback on how to improve, and so on. We do have various kinds of activities that we use, and some of that in the assessments as well. Um, Most of the essays or the assignments require reflective work because we recognize that you are developing while on the course, and we would like to hear students' reflections on how their teaching or their delivering teaching or organizing teaching has changed as a result of being on the course. So we expect students to be able to be critical about their reflection and what they write. We use our VLE for most of our discussions and activities. We also have electronic reading lists for all the courses. So if you can't actually get to the library, it's not an issue because most of the readings are linked electronically in the reading list. So you can access it from wherever you are. Um, we also have introduced a lot of in-between interactive VLE discussions so that students feel connected right from the time you start the course to the very end. So here we're focusing only on the PG certificate, which is the first course. It is a 60 credit course. There are three modules or units, each of which is 20 credits. And the 20 credits, I'd just like to add, probably signifies best your hours of learning. So generally for a 20 credit module, it means students have to put in 200 effort hours. And that includes the days you come into the teaching, the days you spend writing your assignments, and so on. But what it's trying to say also is that we do expect some kind of, reading around the subject that you will be doing. So the self-directed teaching. To account for the 200 effort hours. So we've put all the dates here already so you can see them, but they are on the website also. And there are three core modules. The first one starts talking about educational theory, introduces the students to teaching and how educational theory can be used to underpin everything you do so that you know why you do what you do and you know how to do it. The next module then tries to look at your practice and how whatever you've learned is applied to actual practice. So you will do some practical teaching, you will have to observe each other teaching and giving feedback and so on. So you will learn how to improve your teaching skills. And then finally, the third module talks about assessments. What are good assessments, how to design assessments, what is evaluation, how you evaluate your teaching, but how you evaluate courses also, and the importance of giving feedback. So, what is feedback? How do you give feedback to your students and to each other? There's a whole science and a body of literature around each of these. So, each of the three modules, I think, focuses students to start learning about educational theory and then progress to how you use it in practice. And then once you've started using it, to think about how do you assess your students, but how do you also evaluate how your course has been or how your teaching session has been, and how can we give feedback to students placed with us or trainees with us, and so on. Okay, so excuse me. Course assessment, then we have two types of assessments. Informative assessment is assessment for learning. So we use it so that students get feedback on what they need or what they could do differently in future. So it is assessment for learning, and we encourage students to reflect regularly so that they document what they're learning and how their thinking is changing as a result of the new knowledge. We also expect active participation in the program, obviously, and then students have to take part in peer review of their teaching so that they learn how to give feedback, but they also see somebody else teaching and you get feedback on your teaching. This is all formative in that it is not marked. We don't count the marks. It is only used for student development, so it is for their learning. In terms of summative assessment, now that's when it counts towards the marks for the course. So summative assessment is our assessment of your learning. And we use a range of formats. In the cert, it is typically coursework, where you are asked to reflect on particular topics. So that is told to students in advance, and then they do their coursework and post it up, and then we mark and we give them feedback. For the other courses, you might have posters or presentations of their projects, but for the PG Cert course that we're talking about, it is largely coursework. So progression. Students who complete our PG Cert course may decide that they'd like to, they enjoy the course or education is a big part of their job description. So they might decide to progress to the PG diploma course. And the only requirement for that is a successful completion of the PG Cert course. And then similarly from the PG diploma to go on to the master's level course. So at each stage, successful completion of the previous course is required to go on to the next course. And that is the only uh, requirement at the minute. The other good news for students is that we have now got accreditation plus status for the Academy of Medical Educators. And that means that when you complete our course at the end of the PG certificate year, you are eligible to apply for membership of the Academy of Medical Educators by virtue of having completed this course. So, with your course certificate and a few personal details, you can join membership. There is, of course, a fee that they charge for membership. So, I'm just making that clear. Um, Course is accredited, and it's up to students to decide whether they wish to apply for membership or not. If you have an educational role in your job description, you might find that having membership gives you a sort of a benchmark in terms of teaching qualifications, but also teaching practice and experience. And so in your career development, that is quite a useful thing to have. Right. In terms of your application, then, Laura, would you like to speak to this slide?
Yeah, sure,
Is that okay?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you need to submit a fresh application for, excuse me, each course of the cert, the MST requires a new application. There'll be some mandatory documents that you need to provide with your application form, such as your CV, academic transcripts, and the details of two referees that we can contact who can set out your suitability for the course and your professional standing. Depending on your circumstances, such as your previous degree, you might also be asked to provide evidence of your English language abilities, and our admissions teams makes that decision and will contact you should that be required. The application deadline for entry in October 2026 is the 28th of May. We are currently interviewing from this point onwards, but you do have until the 28th of May to get any application in. Thanks, Vina.
Okay. So, the course fees, you have all the details on the web page. But here are what the home fees are and the overseas fee. So PACE doesn't actually provide any bursaries, but we wanted to tell you that if you are a doctor in training, I think at the minute it's only for doctors. But if you are in training in the east of England, they've just announced their bursaries for courses starting in September and October this year. The deadline is the 10th of April, so we thought it'd be useful to flag it up to you here. If you wish to apply, there is a link here. So when you get the recording, you will also get the link to the bursaries, hopefully. And you might be able to apply for the bursaries. Successful applications, I'm not sure what proportion get bursaries, but if you are from the east of England, you might wish to apply and see if you can get that done. Um, for international students, any formal offer will have, and I think even for home students, we do confirm whether you're considered as an overseas student or a home student. There is some flexibility about payment. You might be able to pay in equal installments, for equal installments per year. But all the details are provided on the PACE website, and the link should be available to you. Okay, I'll hand over to Ryan now for the student experience.
Hi everyone, my name's Ryan. I'm currently a doctor working in East England and I'm a clinical teaching fellow with the University of Cambridge. And I love the PG cert, honestly, and I'm not just saying that because I've been asked to come here. I really, really, really do enjoy it. And I've got a few colleagues who are doing PG certs at different institutions. And when we catch up speaking to them, I think I'm the one who's having the most amount of fun and also getting the most out of it. The course structure is structured in such a way that it develops you as an educator as well. You get a really nice foundation in the principles and the academics behind medical education, and then that transitions as you progress throughout the year into applying that into your own educational practice, coming back to the in-person days to feedback what worked well, what didn't work well. And there's a big emphasis on peer-to-peer support and discussion. So you've got a room full of people at different stages of their career, so you can network with that. They have different teaching experiences, so all of that pulls together to help develop you as an educator as well as a learner. I think another big reason as to why I really enjoyed this course is the people who deliver it. So you get to meet some incredible facilitators and some real key people within medical education who bring not just their expertise, but like a wealth of lived experience that closely relates a lot to my lived experience and then the others in the course. So I really see them as like mentors and key figures to develop me as an educator. And then linking back to the in-person days, there's a few on this course, and I think that's one of my favorite parts. Like everyone looks forward to the in-person days because they're a lot of fun. You learn a lot, and it's just great to have that face-to-face in-person experience to know your cohort within a course. And then looking towards the assessments on the course, they're all very manageable and relate directly to the content that you're being taught in the in-person days, as well as the flipped learning on the virtual environment. So there's a virtual environment for this course, which has a wealth of supplementary materials to develop in our own time. And as you progress through the course, it's the assessments are like a natural progression with that. So very much starting with where you are with your medical education, reflecting that to now you've done this course, what have you learned and what you can take forward. So I really, honestly, I can't recommend it enough. And I hope you'll enjoy as much as I have.
Thank you, Ryan. So it's over to everybody else, all the attendees now for your Q&A.
Okay, so do please keep typing your questions in the Q&A function. Vina, I don't know
Yeah.
if you could answer this question about
Mhm.
the sorts of things that our alumni have gone on to do. How's it helped them in their career progression, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Okay. So the courses have been had a staggered start. So the PG cert started much earlier. I think we've had the first alumni conference this year. It was an extremely positive event, and students were really pleased to come back and catch up with each other on where they're at. So people go on to take on more sort of educational leadership roles in their trusts, maybe sometimes as college tutors, and eventually maybe directors of medical education, or within their own specialty training programs, they might become, the training program director eventually. But before that, they probably, become clinical supervisors, educational supervisors, and so on. Some people also have roles with universities, so they may be in clinical practice, but have a contract with an university to teach their students, or they might just be in practice and teaching medical students. So it just depends on what you want to make of it. If you've got education in your role, or you enjoy teaching, then that's as much as you can, you can use what you learn to be a better teacher. If you have an intention to sort of apply for, faculty development or sort of leadership roles, then you might wish to use it in that way to sort of apply for positions of leadership in education. Yeah, so people are employed in trusts, in universities, and so on. And I also know that some specialty training programs do give additional marks if you've got a postgraduate certificate in education. So that's something else to think about.
Great, thank you. Ryan, I don't know from your perspective, how do you think this course might help you with your future plans?
I mean, I signed up to this course because I really enjoy medical education, and this is like the next stepping stone um, to developing a career within that. And as Vina mentioned, in terms of getting positions formal within medical education, having PG cert after your name or going on to do diploma and masters sets you above the rest of the candidates because it shows you've got commitment to medical education, as well as you've reached a standard to be able to to get the certificate. You have to have the ability to deliver a certain standard of
Mhm.
education. So
Yeah,
instantly that demonstrates you as like a very um, strong candidate within that field. And then also it gives you the skills then to you now you've like kind of talked the talk, you have to walk the walk. So you can again to deliver
yeah,
that fantastic education rooted within evidence-based practice. Like as doctors, everything we do is evidence-based. So teaching should be the same to deliver the right set of outcomes. And then also you get to network with like a really great bunch of people. So that opens more doors. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And we've got two very similar questions come through. Vina, could you just talk us through what the typical structure of a teaching day looks like? And just to confirm as well that the in-person days are mandatory and there is
yeah.
no opportunity to join remotely.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the key feature and something that the students actually tell us that they love are the in-person teaching days. And so that has stayed. We've kept that as a mainstay of all our courses. It is an opportunity for you to get away from, your clinical practice, whatever it is you do, but to come to some dedicated time for developing yourself along with others who share the same passion and are on your course. So typically they would start at 9:30 and end at around 4:30. I mean, that's not an absolute, but around that time. So it, gives you enough time to get there in good time and to leave in good time. But while you're there, the day is structured, we have breaks in between, but all of the days are structured as some amount of didactic teaching, but a lot of group work. So students are encouraged to discuss with each other and then come up with sometimes with group work, each table required to produce something to share with the others. And so that's a good way for you to get to know each other, but also to learn from each other. And then when you feed it back to the class, class, you're also hearing what the other groups do. And I think we've tried to keep that model going. So in fact, we have two groups of PG Cert students at the minute. Ryan's in one group. There is another group of, 25 to 30 students. And what they enjoy most is the group interaction, the small group teaching, and so on.
Ryan, do you have anything to add in terms of the
Uh,
benefits of those in-person days?
no, genuinely, it's the best part. And I'm the cohort representative for my group, and then speaking to everyone in my cohort as well as the others, because you'll have joint days. The in-person days are the best part of the course, and it's honestly the best. The days are structured like the way the course is designed and the way that the facilitator structured the day is unlike any other. Like these are leading people within the world of medical education.
Mhm.
The day is structured such that all content is delivered at a certain time and you get a certain amount of breaks. The group discussions happen after a certain point. Everything feeds into developing as educators. Everything is planned such that it's so high yield for us as learners compared to other courses and other things where it's a very didactic system. You're just talked at for X many hours. In this, you engage so much and you make the learning your own. Um, Plus, it's just so good to speak to other people, and it's yeah, I cannot recommend the in-person days enough. It's the best part.
Excellent. Veena, how would you say the structure and assessment of the postgraduate diploma compares to the PG Cert year?
Okay, I mean, we do have three modules in each of the 2 years. The PG DIP year focuses a lot on developing your feedback literacy. So that's something we have sort of developing further from the PG CERT in terms of spiral learning. So you learn the basics of giving feedback in your CERT year, but in the DIP year, we actually take it a lot further. So you are giving verbal feedback to your colleagues on their on projects that you're doing, but also give feedback and get feedback in writing. And those are quite different skills. So giving verbal feedback is quite different from written feedback, but you get to learn to do both of those over the year. The other thing is the one of the assessments is, and we will help you with how you start doing that preparation, is to develop an educational intervention or an innovation during the year. So you write about something you would like to develop. It can be however small you want it to be, or however, excuse me, however large. And we will try and give you feedback, and so will your colleagues. So that's one assessment. And then the second one is a portfolio of your learning. So we encourage you to look at the professional standards in your either in your profession or in your specialty of medicine, and then talk about how you have met those standards, giving us some examples of how you are telling us that you've demonstrated that based on the examples you include. So we call them exemplars, and you're required to write your portfolio with reference to 10 exemplars, showing us how you've either shifted your thinking or shifted your practice as a result of being on the diploma course. So that's the difference. You learn about everything in the cert, and you have to actually do and demonstrate in the dip. So it just goes a little bit higher. And then in the final module, we talk about educational leadership and developing others. So if you intend to take your educational role further, then the DIP course is a good one, because you will learn how to develop yourself as an educator, or in fact, where your gaps are and what you need to plan in future. But also that important ability to think about how you develop others in future. So once you developed yourself, you can become a leader in education and think about how your peers or your students might be better developed because of the skills you gain on the course.
Great, thank you. Ryan, this is for you.
Yeah.
Did you have any preconceptions about coming to study a Cambridge course, and how's that compared to the reality?
Um, that's an interesting question. I don't think I had any preconceptions, maybe the only ones being that I thought it would be pretty academic and there might be very coursework heavy. Um, but actually I mean, it's really academic in the best way for this course because it's full of all the academic literature that you need to know about to become a better educator and develop that side of teaching, because people can go and teach, but then it's a case of, well, do your students actually learn something well? How do you evaluate your teaching? Did you actually deliver something that has been shown to work well? And you get all of those skills on the course. And then thinking to what I knew about Cambridge before coming here is I think there's lots of assessments that you have to do. But on this course, the assessments are very, very manageable and run in parallel with what you're doing on the course. So everything that you're being taught in the in-person days is directly relevant to the assessments that you have to do. So you're being like subconsciously supported in writing what you have to write at the different points in the course with the in-person days, as well as developing your own educational skill set. So it's a
Yeah.
real holistic development on the course.
Yeah, one quick thing I wanted to mention is that we also have tutor groups throughout the years in all of the courses, and it's sort of mirrors Cambridge tutorials from the colleges and things. So what we do is have specific tutorials. You are all allocated a tutor, so each tutor has a group of, well, it depends, 6 or 8 students maybe. So we do group work also with the tutors, so they are constantly giving you feedback when you send them drafts of your essays maybe, and you get some formative feedback, and you understand what you need to change in advance of submitting your summative assessment. So the tutors are there to help you with that, and every year is divided into tutor groups, and you will have some tutorials during the year.
Thank you. Veena, is there anything in particular that you would advise applicants to focus on in their application, or any advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the key things we're looking for is your teaching experience. What has your teaching experience been? Have you done any teaching? And as a result of having done that teaching, have you been introspective enough or thinking about your own teaching critically so that you are able to identify your strengths, but also areas where you might want to focus your improvement, things that would be even better if you'd done something differently, maybe. So we need you to be open and receptive to those kinds of development. And so in your application, we'd like to know a little bit about what you think about teaching you've delivered in the past. Are you able to tell us a little bit about, what your strengths were from there, or areas that you needed to develop further? But we also require you to have some opportunities for teaching while you're on the course. And that's because the course is designed so that it helps you to get better at your teaching. So we expect you to be able to apply what you learn in the course to your actual teaching so that in year you can see the progress in your own work. And so those are the kinds of things, we want you to be open-minded, but we also want you to tell us that you've done some teaching in the past, but that you definitely have opportunities available for you to apply all your new learning to. I don't know, Ryan, have
Great.
I missed anything else? Sorry, I was just from the
No, I think
student
that's
point of view.
no, I think it's everything. And then
Yeah.
also just going back to the tutor groups, the
Mm.
tutors will have done the PG cert and other degrees as well. So they know they've done the assessments that you're doing. So their feedback is invaluable.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot to mention that actually when the question came about, what do they go on to do? And on the course, we have several tutors, but also teaching faculty who are ex-students of the course. So they all, they've been there and done that, and they've done the course themselves. They understand exactly your issues, and so they're able to give you, feedback in terms of what you need to work on from your individual perspective.
Thank you. We've had a question here about how long after interview are offers given out. So we are interviewing, as we say, from now onwards, probably through to mid-June. We will make offers as we go usually, but there might be a couple of weeks wait. What tends to happen is a few weeks after your interview, you'll get an email suggesting that we want to make you an informal offer, and then that has to go through our admissions team to formalise the offer, and they will be in touch with you. But as you can imagine, the admissions team are very busy, so don't be particularly alarmed if there is a bit of a delay between getting that final formal offer. We have somebody who completed the PG cert in 2021, and they want to know if they're still eligible to apply for the diploma. I believe that's a yes, Veena, but
Yes.
is there
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
any considerations about taking that gap?
Yeah, I mean, people take gaps for various reasons, and sometimes it's just the way, your professional career works out, or, you take time out for a particular reason, or you didn't have an educational role that required the diploma at that stage. You were just a teacher wanting to do, teach better, and your role changes and you want to come onto the diploma to learn that. So in terms of the gaps, the ideal scenario would be if you'd had some form of contact with teaching. So if you've just, it's a few years from your cert is fine. But if you have got some teaching experience in between and you've kept the cert going in terms of applying your own learning to it, then that's even better. So I think that's the kind of thing we would look at. So it wouldn't be a straight no. We would still look at any application, even if it was completed a few years ago, because we have people who have been in educational roles throughout. Where they didn't need the qualification, but they have risen higher in the educational ladder, if you look at it like that, and then they've come back to actually get the formal teaching to see if there's something else they can do above and beyond what they've already doing, and this gives them that formal qualification.
Great, thank you. Somebody's asked a question about the intensity of the course. Ryan, I don't know whether you want to give your personal view in terms of how you've managed the course alongside your other commitments.
Yeah. I think the course is very manageable alongside other commitments and like clinical work as doctors. So like on the course, some of my peers, you've got consultants, you've got registrars, you've got F2s. So you've pretty much got a whole, and then you've got people from different outside of medicine as well. There's like dentists and vets. So you've pretty much got like every part of the spectrum doing this course and managing it well. So the in-person days, I think they're all announced on the website, so you can get
Mm.
study leave ahead of time for the whole year. So you've put your notice in early. And then looking at the assessments. So the assessments mostly are there's two large like summative essay pieces, and then there's some peer-to-peer observation, which is formative. For the essays, as you go along the course, they're manageable to do it in bits because the course in the in-person days is teaching you stuff that will relate directly to your essays. Um, with the learning content online, there's a lot of flipped learning that you can do at your own leisure. So when you've got time, say you've got a busy on-call week, the next week you've got some time, you can then dedicate that to going through that material, working your essay in good time. So I think it's very much, regardless of the role
Yeah.
you do, it's a very manageable course.
Yeah, I think in terms of the assessments also because we do give feedback on, formative pieces when you've started writing your essay. So it's not something that you'll just suddenly have to submit at the very end. There are different points in the course where we flag it up. We give you the opportunity to send some, your part of your written assignment to your tutors to get feedback on so that you have enough time to modify whatever it is you were writing. So we do that, and it's not just at the end we expect you to submit an essay. There will be lots of talk about it, lots of work about it before you come to the actual submission.
Right. And we talked about the professions that the cohort tend to
Yeah.
come from. Vina, can you give a bit more information in terms of where people are in their career, their
Yeah.
demographic, where they might be
Yeah.
coming from across the world?
Yeah, typically, I think we have we've had mostly UK students. We did have some international students on some years. On the dip last year, we had two students from Ireland. I think the way the course is structured is helpful, but also I think in terms of careers and things. So on the dip this year, we have a full range, right from very junior doctors to training program directors and everybody in between. We've got multiple professions. It is still very medic heavy. I will be honest about that. But we hope we attract all kinds of health professions, anybody in health professions who has a role in education or an interest in teaching, because I'm sure for every such profession, teaching is something you're expected to do. We were always expected to teach our juniors, to mentor our juniors. And some of us who were so interested in teaching at the time just did it, intuitively based on your past memories or your experiences of what good teaching looked like. But, coming on this course, you have that opportunity to not only learn from active clinicians who are educators, but also from each other, because we think that's the merit that the course has, because it attracts students from various backgrounds and experience levels. So you get a lot out of it, even more than the course planning itself. The course teaching itself is the learning you get from your peers is really good.
Great, thank you. Ryan, was there any considerations that perhaps discouraged you from applying for the course, imposter syndrome or anything like that?
Um, Scott, that's an interesting question. I genuinely don't think there were.
Good.
I'm trying to think, and then from what I've spoken to on other people, I don't think there was, because this is like taking imposter syndrome as an example. This is your entry level into
Yeah.
getting further qualification within medical education. So the PG cert is that stepping stone. I'd done some like I really like med ed. So throughout university and F1, F2,
Yeah.
I did a lot, got involved with medical education, so I had a few other things. But some of my colleagues who'd never done any medical education before, just done some supervising, for myself and for them, this was the first stepping stone. And I
Yeah.
think the environment is very, very welcoming as well. So in terms of having any reservations or, oh, maybe I don't know enough to do this course, or I haven't done enough self-development or know enough about teaching theory, I think the course is very, very accessible for all levels of like education and like experience within teaching. And it eases you in very nicely, and then everyone kind of gets up to speed.
Yeah, I
Great,
think by the
thank
end of
you.
the course, you all get to know each other
Yeah,
really well, don't you?
yeah,
So,
you do.
the imposter syndrome, it just doesn't
It,
exist afterwards because
yeah,
you all feel like you know each other really well, and it's a comfortable environment. It's inclusive, it's interactive, and it's engaging. So I
yeah.
think you lose that quite quickly.
And I think also it's not about like, oh, I did this teaching, it was fantastic, or look at my outcomes of my teaching when you
Mhm.
go into the in-person days. It's about what do you think about this theory? Oh, have you used this? Or what about this? Or I experienced this challenge, and someone will be like, oh my gosh, I get that challenge every day with my students. So it's so much about sharing and feedback than like, oh, I'm like
Yeah.
very outcomes based.
Thank you. We've had a question about college membership. So, Vino, the students tend to go to Wolfson College
Yeah.
in the MST year. Do
Yeah.
you want to just talk a bit about the college system and how that
Yeah,
works?
so I think all master's level students are required to be members of a particular college. So for the cert year and the dip year, it doesn't really matter because you are not required to do that. But I think in your master's year, you are required to be a member of a college, and then that gives you access to the college, but also maybe some additional facilities that they have for you. I mean, that's as much as I know to tell you here. But being a member of a college, gives you that two-way interaction with the college as well as the course.
Yeah, I think it just opened you up as well to a perhaps slightly more
Yeah.
traditional Cambridge
Yes.
experience with the gown and the formal dinners and that sort of thing. So if
Yeah.
that's your thing,
Yeah.
that's the opportunity. Okay, let's have a look, see if any more questions have come in. We've talked about there being that we don't offer any scholarships.
Mhm.
Do you just want to just reiterate the East of England
Yeah.
arrangements that they have?
Yeah, so the East of England, what used to be the deanery, and I think they've undergone so much change that the name changes, but we still think of it as the deanery. So if you are a trainee in the East of England, you will know what I mean by saying the deanery. They've just opened their scholarships, their bursaries for students applying for courses across the region. So it's not just for Cambridge, though. It's for the University of East Anglia and Anglia Ruskin. I think we are the three universities in the East of England offering this kind of a course, and they give bursaries depending on the applications they get. But I think they are also trying to be fair to all the universities in the region. But if you are in the East of England, I would suggest you have a go at applying for their bursaries, and you might get the funding. A closing date is the 10th of April, so you will have to be sharpish and apply quickly. So, yeah, and that's for all the 3 years.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions that we've had in. Is there any final comments, Vina or Ryan? Anything you think would be helpful to people?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for taking the time to attend this session today. And it's been great to hear all the questions because I think when we are able to answer your questions directly like this, hopefully it will put you in a better place in terms of convincing you to make that application if you're hesitating. And I think Ryan said enough about the student experience, but I'm sure you can speak to Ryan personally also. He will tell you what the experience has been like. And of course, if you want to email me or anybody else on the course, we'll be only too happy to speak to you on an individual level. So if you have any concerns or further questions that weren't addressed today, please get in touch, and we'll make sure that one of us gets back to you with specifics, answers to your questions. Okay, so thank you all for coming, and I look forward to seeing all your applications. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Bye.